Welcome to Cornell University. Just want to explain very quickly. First, it's exciting to have a breakthrough in biblical research, but it's very exciting when you know that perhaps one of the most difficult problems uh, for most people, it seemed like the unsolvable problem. And how did a Baptist preacher, for example, solve that problem, especially a retired professor of hermeneutics, Brother John Penn of the Missionary Baptist Seminary? And how did he use his research assistants, former students is what we are? Well, he invited us to participate in research that he was doing in a subject about time, and he encouraged us to use the hermeneutics that he had always taught us. So much did he encourage us that we even went back and quantified the hermeneutic process. We even published it. It's on imcorne.org under the books tab in PDF form. And it led to this book here, The First Atom and the Planet Earth. My brother Penn, of course, research assistants. We help hammer out the details and compile the material. But how did he cause such a brilliant solution? Probably the best solution appears to be out there for one of the largest problems. It solved the young versus old Earth. And he had said if he had all the numbers, he could uh, he could recognize a formula. That is, he believed there was a formula there. We just needed all the numbers. So when he was giving the numbers, he was talking about 360 prophetic days as far as the number of days in a prophetic year. Of course, that's true because in the Bible, the Noah was taught in Genesis, or in the account of Noah, we have a 360-day calendar year. We also have in the prophecy of Daniel between March 14th, 445 BC and April 6th, 32 AD, 173,880 days, which is exactly the number you get if you multiply 483 times a 360-day prophetic year, for example. You get the 173,880 days as well. So the way it's set up, and it's perfectly symmetrical, it's really amazing how clear the Bible is and how precise it is. So here we have a situation where we have days, days, years, years. And now over here we have days and then years. And there's years. So now the numbers we had that are in dispute, that is, that people are arguing, they'll say, is it billions or is it thousands? He prompted us to think, he prompted me especially to think, well, what would it look like? Let's just lay the numbers out. So here we have 4.5 and 4.5, and this is billions here. People say the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. So there's billion years. Now we all know that Adam, when he was created in just hours, he was actually 30 years old, which means anything created is always much older than the time of its existence. So it's not a problem that whenever the earth was created, that it could be older than the time ago it was created. So here the number we were dealing with was an approximately 6,000 year time period. The Bible says one day is 1,000 years. So here's the ratio. One day is like 1,000 years. So this is years. This is one day. So when we lay this out, we find that here's the number we needed. Jesus said there's 12 hours in the day, so daylight, daytime, 12 hours. Exodus says man works 6 days, that's 6 12-hour days, sun up to sundown, and then rest on the seventh day, which means there is no work on the seventh day. There's no even gathering of sticks to kindle a fire. So everyone stops and pauses, and rest occurs on the seventh day. So then perhaps this number here was only reflecting the 12 hours So as an amount, it was easy to then just say, well, 12,500 years, then multiply this times 360 days in the days column equals 4.5 million days, which when you multiply this by 1,000 years, that's how you get the that equals 4.5 billion years. So it couldn't be laid out perfectly, any more perfectly. As you can see, the symmetry of it, you have years, days, years. You have the 6,000 year that people are advocating without any mathematical proof. We now have that, and this is why I say it's the most remarkable solution to probably one of the most difficult problems out there. But younger pastors, former students working with older pastors, retired professors is very much what the associational spirit of the American Baptist Association is about. So Brother Penn, wanting to collaborate, wanting to have help from research assistants, we were glad to help him. We knew that he sees a lot more than he can explain, so research assistants, as he trained us up where we could be equipped and more useful even for him, and then he for us, and then we all for the glory of God. So here's the perfect solution to a very difficult problem. But here's how it was. Here was the logic that was followed under his guided research. First, he said we had all the numbers, so we did have 360, the calendar year. We did have the 1 and the 1,000 years, those numbers. So we just set up how many years do we need times 360 days, knowing relativity is what this expresses. So this doesn't prove, it doesn't prove physics is right or math is right or anything like that. All it does is use those things, and in this case, third grade level arithmetic, to demonstrate that the Bible doctrine of relativity is the solution to the problem. Now, how to work that out, hammer it out to everyone's satisfaction, I wouldn't even know if I would be interested. I do know that this answers why people once lived to thousands of years, or up to 1,000 years, and now we only live to 100. It's it's unsurpassed as far as using the Bible. Now, at least you can converse when you witness. You can give a reason for your certainty. If someone says, well, it says Adam died in the day he ate. Well, there's good evidence that instantly, spiritually speaking, he did, of course. There's other verses to show that. And then there's excellent context evidence that show that he did live for 930 years, but he died within a 1,000-year day. And that 1,000-year day is no more. The Bible says that at one point, Genesis 6:3, God said, my spirit will no longer strive with man. He's speaking of a 120-year period. Some have said in principle that refers to lifespan. In Psalm 90, God said 80 years, but if you take 80 and 120, you get an average of 100. So there we are back to that ratio of a 1,000-year day and a 100-year lifespan. Geneticists have observed the decay rate, recognizing that there had to be a sophisticated mathematical model in the Bible for them. Otherwise, what would have been their motivation for collaborating across a 1,500-year period of time, 40 different authors? So that wasn't the case. Here's the answer. And you can see how it lays out very well, symmetrical. You see how it uses the Bible numbers, 360-day year, 1 day is 1,000 years. And then you see how it takes the numbers that men have developed, 6,000 years and 4.5 billion years. And the science that was developed from theology says 4.5 billion years. And chronology and timelines that men who study the Bible have derived, say 6,250, approximately 6,000 years. Well, you see how easy that was for this to be shown. So that if you're talking to someone who believes the earth is billions of years old, you can then say, well, yes, but you know it didn't have to come into existence but 12,500 years ago for it to have aged in ratio to 4.5 billion. If you know someone that says they believe the earth is but thousands of years old, you can remind them that it did not have to, that like Adam, who was only hours old, was 30 years old. You can remind them that just because it came into existence only thousands of years ago does not mean its age is not 4.5 billion. So time is not constant. The rates of time are relative, and the solar clock is decelerating. The Earth is, and the solar clock is slowing down. What scientists see as the big ending now, the ending of our universe, and the ending of the world as we know it, is actually the beginning of what we look forward to, 1,000-year reign, that day of Christ on the earth. So this is it. It's perfectly symmetrical. It lays out, but this was the logic process and steps we went through. It's irrefutable, that is, because it's just from the Bible. And why someone would want to pick this over this or this over that is because they are denying the doctrine of relativity that's taught by Moses, who wrote Genesis and Psalm 90, and then by Peter, who used that lesson that Moses in the Psalm, a song was written about it. Peter used it to teach people about the reality of Christ's return, and that he's not in a delay, as people who were scoffing them were alleging and ridiculing them, saying he must be delaying. He's not delaying. It's only, to God, it was only like 2 days ago his son was on the cross. So that's very much why the history of man is so contemporaneous with the God who created us. So you have a blessed day and enjoy this. But this is how a professor of the Missionary Baptist Seminary in Little Rock, Arkansas, professor of hermeneutics, specifically John Penn, led his research assistants, former students, to produce the best answer for the worst problem. So you enjoy it and have a blessed day.